we do have a guest. We've got our man Jake from DNVR. If you haven't seen anything that's gone on with Coach Prime, which if you haven't, you're living under a rock.
Clearly.
But a lot of it's probably from this guy right here. Like we said, Jake from DNVR. See you, the Buffs at all times. Jake, you are just pumping out content, dude.
It's a grind, man. It's been a lot, but it's been a lot of fun. This team, Coach Prime always keeps you on your toes. So you just got to be ready. You just got to be ready to pump out stuff as needed.
What's this season kind of been like for just like aside from CU and Coach Prime? We know about all the stuff that's gone on from a national perspective, but what has it been like from your perspective?
Exhausting. It's been a lot of work. It's been a lot of fun though, man. This team is the talk of the nation, obviously, but just the way that Coach Prime has been able to, just build this roster, the talent that we've seen come in. I mean, we can talk about the game from last year. You guys saw it. I mean, they were terrible last year. So just to have a competent football team, something, that you can turn the film on a Monday after the game and you don't feel like you're wasting your time. That's just been a blessing in and of itself. So it's been really fun.
I mean, what is specifically the Coach Prime experience been like? I feel like he obviously has a little bit of a reputation of being, like a prima donna, and fair or not, like has it been like a generally pleasant experience dealing with everything that comes with Deion Sanders?
Yeah, for sure, man. I mean, it's been a lot of attention thrown, at you at once. Not all of it positive, a lot of negative, a lot of hate. But it's just been amazing. It's been busy. It's been, I don't know, always learning, always trying new things just to see what works, really. So it's been a crazy learning experience. It's wild for me to look back and feel like it's only been 10 months, but man, it's been a long 10 months.
Yeah. I feel like everything was elevated.
Yeah.
Like the moment that happened, the whole thing just kind of, it took off obviously for the better. Kind of looking forward to this matchup on Saturday. Again, I think there's just a lot of people that when they think of CU, it's Prime and it's Shedeur, but okay, and Travis Hunter. I'll throw Travis Hunter in there as well. But for folks that haven't watched a lot of CU getting ready for that Saturday matchup when they come to Tempe and take on Kenny Dillingham's Sun Devils, who are some other guys that maybe ASU fans should keep an eye on?
Sure. I mean, yeah, you started off well with Shedeur and Travis there. Obviously, Travis is going to be out after taking that late hit against CSU. Sounds like he's going to be out for a while. But Omari Miller, a freshman wide receiver who really exploded onto the scene last week, didn't even have a target going into last week's game, let alone a reception, and went off for nearly 200 yards. He's a guy to look out for. Xavier Weaver's kind of been Shedeur's go-to receiver really throughout the entire year. I think he's the leading receiver on the team as it stands right now. A little banged up right now, so we'll see how much you see from him. But he's really grown a connection with Michael Harrison, too. He's a guy who's actually been on this roster quite a while. I think going back to 2020, he's also a walk-on, and he's just been able to change positions, too. He was originally a wide receiver, and now he's playing tight end. And, you look at him, he doesn't look like, Jalen Conyers, for example. He's not 6'5", 240-some pounds. I mean, this is a guy who's really in between, big receiver, small tight end, but he's been really kind of Shedeur's security blanket to this point. Dylan Edwards is another explosive guy offensively. Defensively, Shiloh should be back. He also had an internal injury, which is weird. We've had 2 internal injuries already to this point. But it seems like he's gearing up ready to get back to practice and play this weekend. And then Cormani McLean, the 5-star freshman at cornerback, and Omarion Cooper. He's a FSU transfer at corner as well. I mean, the strength of this team is what I just laid out right there. It's the perimeters. It's the wide receivers, the corners, the safeties. That's what everyone expected coming into this year. And they've been able to get by in situations, with their defensive line, with their edge rushers, with their offensive line. But it is kind of a week-by-week case, really, to see how well they play.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, obviously, you can talk about all the offensive skill players, but obviously that does start and kind of end with Shedeur. What makes him special? I feel like there's a lot of people who formed opinions on him just on the name and haven't actually watched him play. Like, what is it about him that makes him like not just Deion's son, but a legitimate top-tier D1 quarterback?
I mean, this guy is just, Coach Prime, his dad, calls him Grown. And he's called him that from a long time. That's what his name is in his phone, is GROWN. And this guy is just so mature, man. He's someone who's learned a lot actually under Tom Brady. Tom Brady's kind of taken him under his wing. They text a lot back and
That's
forth.
crazy.
So this guy is just, I mean, he's so mature beyond his years. He's so flatlines when it comes to his emotions too. I mean, you can see him, third down, I guess, and a first down, game on the line or first play of the game. He's always got the same demeanor. Just a great football mind too, man. Obviously been around the game for a long, long time because his dad is Deion Sanders. But this guy is just taken in so much coaching, so much learning since he was a little kid, really, and has just applied it to almost every facet of his game, every facet of being a quarterback. He's a great leader. He's very confident, of course. You kind of have to be, I guess, when you're Deion Sanders' son, but he has that part of Coach Prime specifically. And just, man, that's all off the field. On the field, this guy is just, he can do it all. I already mentioned his poise. He can run around. He can make plays behind the line of scrimmage. He can take off. If you give him an open lane up the middle of the field, he's going to go for 10, 15 yards at least. He's got amazing accuracy and timing. He's really like a coach on the field. He understands this offense so well. He's just been around the game for so long. The guy he's got it, if that means, I kind of hate when people say that, but he really does have it, man.
Yeah, no, it's certainly going to be, I think, an interesting game, and I do want to get to that matchup. But just kind of looking back to when we were all in Vegas, right, and we were there for media day, and the coaches were coming around, and the players were coming around, and obviously we had our conversations about everything, and it's just crazy to think the hype around these two programs at that point, and then just to see the trajectory of where they're at. And I think it's been tough, at least from our end. I want to get your opinion on Arizona State and just that perspective of the whole thing, because I think there's a lot of people locally who do still really, really believe in what Kenny Dillingham is building. We've heard from Lincoln Riley. We obviously heard from Coach Prime. We've heard from Gundy. So many coaches that say that they see what Arizona State is building, but obviously the results have yet to be yielded quite yet. I guess, what is your perspective on Arizona State and just the way that the season has gone thus far?
I mean, obviously a little unfortunate, with the Rashada injury, just the weird, circumstance of the first game, with the dust storm coming in, kind of, putting off momentum at that point. And the team has been fighting. I mean, I watched the USC game, man, and it was impressive to watch them fight. Scadaboo is just amazing. I mean, that guy does everything. He's like your own, like, Travis Hunter in a way. I mean, what can't the guy do at this point? But, I mean, Anthony, if you remember when we were talking, I think before the game last year, I think both coaches had been fired at that point, and we both talked about Kenny Dillingham. Obviously, you guys, ASU has the connection with Kenny Dillingham. You saw it last year when he was at Oregon, the way he spoke when he was able to speak, what he was doing in terms of their play design. The guy he gets football at another level that most coaches don't at his age. And I truly believe, they've taken advantage of the transfer portal. Other than CU, ASU, I believe, in the Pac-12 or in the nation, had the most transfers in. Mm-hmm. So he understands the modern day football. He's obviously a young guy. He gets the modern player. I mean, it's rough right now. I know, 1-4 is not where you guys want to be. Mm-hmm. But again, I mean, the way he's been able to bring players in, the caliber too. I mean, this team's competing week in, week out. I don't think this is going to be an easy game for CU. I mean, who knows what happens late in the fourth quarter and stuff. But, CU struggled to get off to strong starts in almost every single game other than TCU, really. So that's an opportunity for ASU. Kenny Dillingham, though, man, I mean, he's as advertised for me. He's been very impressive, and you can count me in as a believer in him, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the slow starts for CU. Like, why do you think that happens? Like, what do you think the problem is there?
That's a great question. Obviously, they've struggled running the ball. So, they don't have that crutch to kind of go to. They kind of have to get into this screen game in order, like an extension of their running game, in order to try to simply move the ball, 5-6 yards at a time. And teams have really zoned in on that ever since that TCU game, because they really abused TCU in that regard, just with their screen game out, not just out of the backfield, but on the perimeter. So teams have keyed in on that. Obviously, the offensive line isn't great either. I think teams have realized if you bring pressure and, Shedeur's back there waiting for a route to develop down the field, you can just get to Shedeur before he even has a chance. So it's been a combination of those things. Obviously, just a lot of new pieces coming together too. They've battled some injuries early on in the year. They were missing their center and right guard at certain points throughout this season. They've had injuries in the backfield. Alton McCaskill hasn't really been able to come in and be the guy who we thought he was, and we thought that was going to be what settled this run game and what made it so lethal. We still haven't really seen him. He only got one carry last week. He played a bit at the end of the Oregon game. So it's all just a matter of that together. Makes it really hard for this team if it's not rolling on that very first series from the very first play.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is such a unique matchup on both sides, right? Because each team has the injuries that they're going through. Obviously, CU with Travis Hunter, you mentioned Shiloh on the defensive side of the ball, and then ASU, man, we go out to practice, and it is just literally a lineup of guys that are in non-contact jerseys or that are out in the tent. And it's tough because I feel like both of these teams, like you mentioned earlier, right, they really hit the portal hard. They really hit recruiting hard. And I feel like it is almost it's hurt the national view of these two programs. Obviously, CU in a far different scenario because the results, like we talk about almost every day leading up to this matchup, right, is regardless of Deion being a first-year head coach at this level, he's got some results that he is able to at least appease the CU fan base. For ASU on the other side, you're one win right now with Southern Utah. And while we could say that they were competitive against USC or they were competitive against Cal or competitive against Oak State, like at the end of the day, competitive doesn't cut it in this industry. You know that. Like it is going to take, I think, a real perfect game almost for Arizona State to take down a team like CU. But with that said, regardless of what we feel, the books have Colorado as only, I think, a 4.5-point favorite. And it's been an interesting ride to see how the books have favored, I guess, just put up the odds for Arizona State. Last week, they were 13.5-point dogs to Cal, a team that was like, that just felt, like you said, unreal to us. We knew 13.5 points was far too much for a Cal team. How do you feel about that 4.5-point spread in this game?
Honestly, I mean, I think it's a pretty well set line. I mean, we don't really know what CU is on the road still. They went in and beat TCU in that week 1 game. And obviously there was a lot of build up to that game, a lot of just narratives, not only just the football, but everything just about the doubts that this team saw in the offseason. And then you go to Oregon and you just get completely smoked. I mean, from the opening snap, it wasn't even close. So CU's looking, they're a little bit like they kind of play to their opponent type of stuff so far. I mean, really, besides the Nebraska game where they just flat out dominated. Even in that game, though, they had a slow start in that game. I think it was only 14 or 7-0 at halftime. So it's tough to say exactly what you're getting from this team on a week-to-week basis at this point. I do think that, minus 4.5 is a round that has me slightly uncomfortable, I think, on both sides. So I think it's a well-set line overall.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to it. I think I like ASU, but I'm a little biased. I want to get back to like Travis Hunter for a second. How big of a loss is he? Because I mean I feel like a lot of people are like he plays both sides, cool, but like he's obviously quite talented. How big of a loss is he for this team?
It's hard to put into words. I mean, you literally lose 2 players.
Yeah.
Just because he plays both sides and he does it so well. I mean, he's without a doubt their best receiver and their best cornerback. So it changes everything. I mean, you have a guy who can go out there and be that lockdown receiver on one side of the field. I mean, we all know what that does in football when you have one side of the field locked down and how everyone can kind of play off of that. Well, now you don't have that. Now you're forced to bring in younger players, guys who are being thrown into the spotlight. So that's just defensively. On the offensive side of the ball, not having, that backside like X receiver, that dude that can win single coverage, that can be singled out there and just completely tilt the field in the offense's favor. We saw that last week because once Omari Miller came in the game, towards the second half, and he was starting to play that role, play that backside X and make an impact just one-on-one in coverage, it just opens up everything. So they struggled with that. They struggled with it against CSU when he went out, obviously, but it carried on into Oregon, and really until last week, and when Omarion got in the game, they were still struggling to figure out how to run the offense. So it changes everything, man. I mean, he's a great kid too. He's a great football mind. So just not having that that fiery presence on the sideline. I mean, he was there last week, but they're probably not going to have him this week because it's a road game, obviously. So it goes far beyond, just losing your best player. You're losing a guy that changes how you call the offense, changes how you call the defense, and a guy that really kind of is the heartbeat of the team in a way too.